to kick us off, we have two excellent CEOs today, Mustafa Al-Adhami and Gautam Shetty, who've done a wonderful job raising for their respective MedTech startups. But before we kick into the conversation, I wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about Amplify MedTech and introduce who we are and what we do, just so that you can figure out how you would like to be involved with us. Launched in November of 2024. I am Fehmida Kapadia and identified this need sometime last year, which prompted me to go ahead and launch Amplify MedTech. So our mission is to create a unified MedTech ecosystem by promoting collaboration, networking, and sharing of resources. We want to be inclusive. We want to bring all the MedTech ecosystem partners together so that we can really build a vibrant and sustainable MedTech ecosystem here in the capital region. So what we do is a lot of different activities to get the ecosystem energized. We have online events, we have virtual events as well as in-person events. We facilitate partnership development. So if you're a startup, if you're working on something, if you need to connect with folks, please reach out. I am making connections all the time and helping providers, startups, investors find each other. So please reach out if you're looking for connections. We are also working on building an online presence, as well as building out some educational programs that will really support the MedTech ecosystem. As we discussed, we support all the ecosystem partners in MedTech, so startups, corporations, providers, service organizations, academic institutions, entrepreneurs, inventors, because as startups know, we need to be able to interface with everybody in order to effectively build a company that is going to, create impact and impact patients' lives, which is why we do what we do. And so we want to support that. We unify the ecosystem, enhance collaboration, facilitate access to resources, doing a lot of work with community engagement in 2025. That is our major focus for 2025 is community engagement. And our goal is that all of these activities will support economic growth in the region and promote sustainability, where we are supporting each other to build and grow our respective businesses in the region. Core values are collaboration. We want to accelerate innovation that impacts patients' lives in a sustainable, inclusive way that will promote economic development. And we do all of this with integrity. We have a few events coming up, virtual events, and then we also have a few in-person events planned for May and June. If you are subscribed to our mailing list, you'll get information about all of this. If you're not, please let us know, and we would be happy to add you to the mailing list. We're looking for partners. We are actively looking to partner with folks in the ecosystem. And so if you're interested in partnering with us, please reach out to me, and we would be happy to have that discussion with you. So with that, I am going to ask all of you to tell us a little bit about what stage of development is your startup in, what stage of fundraising is your startup in. So Shraddha, if you can launch a poll, we'll have a quick poll asking that question, and please let us know what stage of fundraising is your startup in. It looks like we have a good mix of folks across the board in the audience today, which is interesting and exciting. So it'll be wonderful to have this conversation with all of you. So Mustafa and Gautam, I will turn it over to you. why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
All right, I can go first. My name is Mustafa. I am the CEO and founder of Astek Diagnostics.
Tell us a little bit more about Astek, Mustafa.
Well, about 3.5 years ago, my grandfather developed a UTI, a urinary tract infection, and it took doctors 4 days to tell him what antibiotic he should be taking. So in the meantime, they tried 3 different ones that did not work. On day 4, the culture came back, but unfortunately, it was a little late because in the meantime, he was delirious. He ended up falling, breaking his hip, and I just watching him go through the process, going from a young 87-year-old to a much, much older one within days, just made me realize that I should quit my job and start Aztec. Um, we're about 3.5 years in. We've been able to take a sketch on a whiteboard into a fully functional um, uh, alpha product. This product is in about 21 different places right now, being tested extensively before we go to beta, and that's the one we go to the market with. So we're Series A company, so currently raising. So if anyone here on the call has a big checkbook with so much money, let's talk later.
Thank you,
I'm
Mustafa.
talking to Gautam here. That's
Hey, Mustafa. Well, I'll try and see what do you mean by a big check? It's all relative. Uh, I'm Gautam Shetty. I'm the founder of Convergence Medical Solutions. We are obviously a medical device company. We're focused on design, development, and supply of injectable drug delivery devices focused on applications involving microliter dosing, injection of viscous formulations, and minimizing drug waste at the point of injection. We were incorporated in 2015 in Maryland. Uh, I come from a background in injectable drug delivery devices. I've been in the industry now almost 20 years, including my time here with Congruence. Um, and I think our lead product is the microliter dosing syringe, which recently received US FDA 510(k) clearance in December. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. And yeah, I look forward to the conversation. We're funded by our partnerships with pharmaceutical companies, so entirely these are multiple programs that we have with pharmaceutical that helps underwrite all of the activities and keep us going. So I'd be happy to speak to that as this conversation goes along.
Right. So, Gautam, why don't you kick us off since you got into the fundraising discussion? Tell us how Congruence came about. You can tell us your story and how did your first round of fundraising come about?
Yes, I mean, we were, as I'd mentioned a little earlier, we raised money from our customers. So I think it's a little different than, I guess, conventional MedTech fundraising or in general fundraising for a business. So we had a partnership which is now in public domain with Sandton Pharmaceutical, which helped bootstrap the company and get our technology off the ground. It was for this device for use in ophthalmology because they're an ophthalmology focused company, and uh, and that's really how we got started. Now, prior to that, I was in the industry, so I had a lot of domain expertise. It's not like I was, a newbie in the space. It's something that we had a lot of background and in commercialization and development of novel devices, and that enabled that transaction to occur, which then helped us get the company off the ground.
Wonderful. And Mustafa, what about you? How did you start Aztec? You told us a little bit about the need, but How did you start? Where did the technology come from, and where did your initial funding come from?
Well, initial funding was TEDCO, so it was the MII program. And at that point, I had not even graduated yet. So we did the phase 1, and phase 3 came like 3 months before my graduation. And Kevin and I, once we got that money, I said, listen, the only way we could ever get more money is to actually turn this sketch into something that works. So in about 6 months, we had something that was at a hospital testing sepsis patients. Yeah. And once we showed that progress to someone at Y Combinator, they said you should definitely apply. This is like really outside the box, and you should definitely do that. So we got accepted into YC summer 2021. So that's when we actually got incorporated. Out of YC, even though YC is for SaaS, for some reason they liked us, and we were able to raise our Series A. So the way I look at it is TEDCO was, they were the friends and family, because we don't have friends and family with money. So then the pre-seed was with YC. And from there, like honestly, we just kept hitting milestones very quickly. We kept on overachieving, and the shortcuts that we took were like, hey, we don't need to do bench testing. If this works with patients, it works with patients. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of our friends in the audience who don't know about TEDCO and MII, can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So TITCO is the venture arm of the state, I would say. So they are usually they're okay with high risk. They are impact driven more than returns driven, which means what they really care about is growing this ecosystem of startups here in the area. The more organic it is, the better. So they would give you really the seed money for you to get started. I am probably the biggest cheerleader for TEDCO. I have testified on their behalf just to keep things going. I think it was for the MII. It really starts with the friends and family, with the MII, and then the Builder Fund, which I've done both. Once we finished that, I had never written a grant in my life, so we did the SBIR lab, and we ended up getting a grant from the first SBIR for the first try. Once you finish that, there's then the seed round, the seed funds with Teddy Gresser, my favorite investor probably. And then at the same time, we got help with regulatory. So there is they have some advisors who you could use for free, up to $10,000, I think. Once you graduate from the seed investment, there are other programs like the Maryland Venture Fund. This is for the Series A, and that's the most recent one that we got approved for. I believe that is the last one. But even if you're on day one or you have not even started yet, I think you should reach out to any of TEDCO's investors, because as I always say, investors do not invest in a time point. They like to see a line. They like to meet you, and then 9 months later consider an investment. Yeah, they're very, very kind as well. You don't get harsh rejections.
So, just to clarify, TEDCO is the state organization for the state of Maryland, and they have funding mechanisms all the way from early stage grants up to venture funds. So if you are a startup in Maryland, TEDCO is a wonderful resource for you to leverage as you're building and growing your company. And as Mustafa mentioned, engage early. So that brings me to my next question. How early should we engage with investors? What was your timeline for engagement? From the time that you engage till the time you get investment, what does that trajectory look like?
Well, I mean, it's like dating, right? Like when do you engage with a potential partner, right? Like it, I don't know, day one. I don't know. Like if you're there, you should be like if you have a startup or thinking about how to start up, you should engage with investors, right? Like it goes from the high school sweetheart friends and family around um where like you just talk to them, right? And then you ask them out, maybe right away, maybe you wait a year, who knows? And then you graduate from that, and now you're in college pre-seed round, and you're just there talking to everyone because you're a social person as a startup founder. At that point, they were going to ask you about milestones. So it's like dating, right? They ask you, what are you going to do after graduation? And you're like, whoa. um, and then you finish college, right? And then you're talking about your seed round. And with the seed round, of course, you're talking, the bar keeps going higher and higher and higher. So you need people that actually have met you before, people that are willing to take risk and so on.
All right. And Gautam, what are your thoughts around it? Since you have gone a completely different route, how long do you think it takes to engage with investors to get funded?
Sure. I mean, we have customers, they're not investors in the company, but I think it's the same purpose. That revenue that we generate is to fund activities in the company, extend our timeline till the product can get commercial. Yeah, I think it was day one. I mean, I I think it was very close until I got agreement from our partner. I hadn't even incorporated the company yet, so I think once I knew that this was going to happen, we did that, and then once you get things rolling, you see other potential customers kind of seeing the story as so I think there's a parallels to what Mustafa was mentioning. They see the story kind of grow and evolve, and I think they would want to kind of engage you, and then we diversify our customer base, our revenue base, which would be the equivalent of the kind of investor base. Um, but yeah, I think it's day one. I think unless you have a pot of money or very wealthy friends and family to start with, I think the money's got to come from somewhere. But I think yeah, I mean, we chose deliberately to use the funding strategy because there was a path available to us. It may not be available in other industries. Right. So I think I was just trying to think of, what would be the equivalent of what we did is it would be like a GoFundMe, maybe, where you get money from your future customers ahead of time and then get your product done. So I think this is maybe a GoFundMe model for MedTech where we had pharmaceutical companies who could potentially use our devices, pay or prepay for a potential option to use our product in the future.
And how did they learn about what you're developing? You had one initial pharmaceutical company that was engaged, right? How did the other partners that you brought on find out about what you're doing, and how did you get them to engage?
Sure, we publish. I mean, these are not peer-reviewed technical publications, but I think they still have to get the word out, right? To kind of maximize or amplify, or to use your company's word to amplify yourself in a way that informs them of what you are doing. But I think on the other side, I think is really we were I came from the industry, so I knew people, so we're networked into the industry, so it was possible to kind of get the word out. Once we had a technology and we identified what need uh, we are able to solve uniquely and build a sustainable model, having a sustainable competitive advantage going forward. Once we had that, I think we started communicating through our personal networks, but also through publications that I think industry publications just to get the word out.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Mustafa,
also
go
maybe,
ahead.
yeah, we did oral presentations at conferences and things like that, where just to be where our potential customers may be, right? You have to be there. So I think it's a different kind of networking, but you got to do whatever you need to kind of attract and acquire new customers.
So publications, conferences,
Yeah.
industry, basically getting the word out through the channels and looking for partners. Okay, what's your longest engagement before you got an investment? What is your shortest and your longest?
Our shortest would be takes at least uh, once the initial discussion through, maybe a agreement being signed or a purchase order being provided to us, would be, I would say at least 3 to 6 months. And our longest has been 6 years, 6 years, where we had the initial contact, and I think they scoured the entire landscape, tried different things, and I eventually came back and said, "Oh, we need you to solve the problem." So I think there was a lesson, right? I mean, the funds, of course, you want to keep building a technology or developing a technology, but the other purpose of these funds is to be kind of provide you with a long enough runway where some of these opportunities can come back. So, is that timing is important, and I think for you to survive long enough for those opportunities to materialize becomes important.
Did you ever tap into any grant funding, Gautam?
No, we didn't have to. We're trying now for some because I think we have a portfolio where I think we could. I mean, it's given the nature of our business, I think the money's tied to a certain project or a program. But we feel like there might be other avenues where that could grow the company or move faster. So I think we are looking for that, or potentially even maybe look for some sort of dilutive sources of funding. But yeah, we have not applied for. Well, we've now applied for grant, but that was not part of our initial funding.
Mustafa, what was your shortest and longest timeline with respect to fundraising?
Shortest is absolutely no meeting. This guy reached out and he said, "Hey, my mother had a UTI that led to sepsis and she died. Here's $25,000." That's really the shortest. The longest is from September 2023 until now. We just got the term sheet. So not even the money yet. So that's what I mean, it's gonna be 8.5, right? But that's a bigger check. That's a 15
Yeah,
check. So
yeah. No, and how have you gone around engaging with VCs and, how do you find them, first of all? How do you find the right VCs and
so
how do you engage with them?
so prior to this round, it it's funny how I found the largest investor prior to this round. So his name is Engel, I think. Fehmida, you've met him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was visiting my mother and we were in the Red Sea in Jordan. And I have kids, my sister had kids, and I was like, I'm sick of all of you, I'm going to golf. So I go out and alone. So I found a random dude. I was like, "Hey, do you want to golf? Do you want to go like do 9 holes or something?" He did not invest. He introduced me to his friend who invested, and that person had co-invested with Engel. So
Engel being one of your
he
investors.
is my largest investor. So you see how like it was just not planned. It was sheer luck that I decided to, you know, golf over family, um, and go. So that's one. And then Engel himself has a very large network. Also, I think let me share this quick. So I have also reached out to many people. So
Are you able to share, Mustafa?
that's what I'm trying to do right now. So I have this investor outreach folder. So these are the ones that you see here. They are still in play. And then you have some here. You have like some that rejected, some are like they did not even want to talk, right? So I have had 600 something meetings to raise the money that we have raised so far. So it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If you get 99 rejections, that's still positive. The 100th probably will work. And it's the one that matters. And the further you advance in your raise, the easier it gets to bring in more money.
Just like dating.
Just like dating, I would like to think you don't ask 100 women out, but it's just like dating. It is, yeah. I mean, you're attractive to some, you're not attractive to the others.
Well, except you know, you got to agree with what you'd name your grandchildren before you go out on your first date.
Oh, dude, that's it. That's all that matters.
But I think there's a couple of kind of, you know, I see parallels, right, with what Mustafa's gone through. So I think what he's saying is, you know, attrition is high, right? I think you probably meet a lot of, so same with us, we meet a lot of customers before you guys. And the other piece is the role of serendipity is, you know, you just never know. You just never know. But I think if you don't create opportunities for these serendipitous events, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, and you never know. You never know.
So it's important to go out to let people know what you're working on, what you're doing, because the more they know about you, the better the chances of them finding you.
Yeah.
But at the
It
same time,
looks like
you have to be
go.
selective as well. You have to be selective.
Yeah.
Because as a founder, you'll get invited to too many events, too many.
Margarita Thursdays. Yeah.
It will be overwhelming. As when I got started, I was not used to the attention. So I accepted everything and I regret it. I think in the end, keep building, be selective, very selective with what speaking engagements you do, for example, even.
How do you decide who is the right fit for you to partner with? What criteria do you use?
Fehmida, if their money is green, my heart is big.
Is that right?
That is absolutely right. Can we just like, I don't know, let's just take their money. I mean, that's why you have a lawyer to protect you.
Okay.
All right,
Gautam?
the different exercise. Eli, come say hi, please.
Hi.
All right, my sixth son is home today. He's been exercising for like 3 hours now, so I don't know if he's sick. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Gautam, what about you? Is it the same thought process for you, or have you been a little more judicious about who you partner with?
Well, since we're not on the investor fundraising circuit, we don't, you know, I don't engage. I do interact with, you know, like I knew Mustafa outside of, you know, outside of our customer kind of ecosystem. But I think we are looking specifically, I mean, as you said, is being selective is important. So our basis for being selective is find events where potential customers could be, but also drive towards potential targets where we would like to have those conversations about who we are and what we do and what those capabilities that may be missing elsewhere that we could provide. And I think those being targeted in your approach to where, so I mean, there are specific events where these guys would potentially show up, like conferences, and we make sure we are there. We're exhibiting, even though we were a young company, we had a booth, right, just to be there and have a conversation. So these are the kind of things that you essentially have to do to create those opportunities, potential opportunities.
So in your case, since it was strategics and it is a fee for product development, how did you maintain non-exclusivity? Because you want to be able to sell that same product to other customers as well.
Yeah, because if you offered exclusivity to the first person who came, then you're essentially an employee of that company, right? We're just not without the benefits of that being an employee of that company. And I think that would not make for a sustainable business model. So the idea would be, hey, you have access to something that isn't available to you otherwise, and but we need to retain the rights to be able to commercialize elsewhere. Also, I think within our industry, I think there is, this sustainability of supply. Having more customers use the same product helps kind of, make better a situation where there's continuity of supply because there's more than one customer. So the product would be available, even if their demand could potentially, go up and down. So I think these are, I mean, yeah, if we could not sell it to anyone else, or that we didn't have rights outside of a particular engagement, then it wouldn't be make for a sustainable business.
Right, right. So switching a little bit to the VC aspect of it, Mustafa. Well, let's say you've gotten some interest. How do you prepare for fundraising? How do you get your house in order for fundraising?
Well, yeah, I start from inside the house, right? So whoever has invested before, I reach out to them with a memo. I say, hey, but by the way, most of my investors, because of the amount they invested, they have the right to reinvest at minimum to meet their pro rata. So what I do is I send a memo out, and I can show you what that looks like because I had to send one out recently. So here's where we are. By the way, there's a Series A, but there were delays with the Series A. This is everyone who has committed to the Series A. That's why I'm raising a bridge round. It's going to be led by XYZ. This is what I'm going to do for it. This is everything that I have raised. See, I am very good with money. And then this is the current financial. This is where we are financially, which, every time you raise, you need to make sure you're doing okay financially because otherwise no one's going to invest. And these are my highlights. See, I'm on top of things. See, they're creating that line that I was talking about in the beginning. It's like a point of time is now no one's going to invest, but unless, they have some emotional attachment to the matter. But for me, like when I reach out, I say, hey, by the way, I have $30 million in contracts, but I need your help to get to the contracts. To get to the contracts, I need my Series A. And the Series A is delayed, which means I need a bridge, and I need your help to get the bridge, to get to the Series A, to get to the contracts. And this is what I accomplished recently. So this is internal. Once you have that, let's say you get 500K, or depending on how big the raise is, could be more. That's when you start your outreach to other people, and that's when you show, like what I do is I say, hey, this is my this is the information. If you're interested, here's access to my data room. And in the data room, it gives you all the information that you need. And I will share my screen so you see what that looks like. Right? So every time any investor asks for something that is not on data room, we pretty much add it. So you start with the deck, financial model. Um, Again, we have contracts with all these people, like in very large institutions. So this is where these things go with letters of support. This is what the deal would look like. This demo, and the biggest one, of course, is the testing data, right? Because we're a hard tech company. Again, this takes about a month to put together, but then it saves you time as you go forward. Um, yeah.
Okay.
Of course, this was for my seed funding. If you go to the Series A, it's much, much, much bigger. The bar is much, much higher. This the talk about money and returns becomes more and more prevalent with the Series A and beyond. Um, but really, you need support from the people that have already invested in order to get new people on board. It's really hard to reach out and be like, hey, I raised zero. And they would look at your cap table and it's like, oh, well, but you have 25 people on your cap table. Why did they not invest? So that's a hard question to answer. Um, so that's why we reach out and get some money and before we actually go out and engage new people.
Right. And after you get the investment, what are the expectations from the VC? What do you have to, in addition to, using the funding for the purpose? Are there any updates that you have to provide? How is the money given to you? Are there what is that? What does that relationship look like after you get the funding?
So we send quarterly updates to the investors, but I don't think we owe them anything else. Um, Sometimes if we want to ask for follow-on investment, they will ask for financials. They will see where their money actually went. But no one has asked for that of the existing investors because we have been very frugal with money. I mean, this whole time.
Right.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's it. And I always with my quarterly update, I add my Calendly so people can pick a time to talk to me. And some of them do. Some of them actually are better than others and like say, hey, how can I help you? Um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gautam, what about you? Since you have a different model, is there an ongoing relationship that is maintained with your partners after you receive the funding?
Oh yes, I think it's all it varies. It could be a bi-weekly to a monthly. There's an entire plan that we agree upon at signing of the agreement, and there would be readouts in all the way through the end of that program. So those engagements have to happen in a timely manner.
So I'm assuming that your funding is in tranches, and once you hit a milestone, you get the
Yes,
next phase?
yes. That's how exactly how it is.
Okay. Wonderful. So we see that a few questions have started coming in. So I'm going to see if we can address some of the audience questions that are coming in. Have you used any AI tools or softwares to help automate and optimize the fundraising process?
We haven't. I don't know if Mustafa has.
Um, I I do believe in human to human contact, and I feel like most of these tools just give you machine to human. And so I don't use them at all, except for since English is not my first language, I use them for grammar sometimes. But um, it's so easy to know this is an AI tool, right?
Right, right.
Like it's so easy, and I'm like, if you're not even taking the effort to send me a thoughtful message, why would I respond to you? Like,
Yeah, you can tell that it's an AI written message.
and there's just one chance for you to have a first impression. One chance. Don't ruin it with an AI tool. If it is something technical, yeah, maybe. Why not? But not with investors, no.
We have a question about valuation. How did you go about deciding your valuation, and how did that work with investors? Did you decide your valuation? Did you have them decide the valuation? How did you negotiate that?
I don't negotiate valuation, especially, well, depends on your stage. Depends on your stage, right? So there are two ways to do it. With convertible notes, it's a note, right? So there may be a cap on it. So say, hey, well, this will be converted not more than X amount in cap. But as far as valuation, you need a lead investor to set that valuation for you. And quite frankly, the last thing these days with the pessimism out there, the last thing you need to worry about is valuation. Get someone on board. If you're worried about getting diluted, issue yourself some new package. If you think this is going to be successful, right? Issue a new option package, get yourself nice compensation that has shares in it. Of course, that doesn't mean you go raise at $1 million post-money cap and you raise 900,000, because that is a turnoff for many investors. But just don't be greedy, especially if you're raising like $200,000 or something small. Don't worry about it. Build a company, build a great company. Evaluation will come.
Did you ever set aside any preferred stock for founders?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so do you recommend founders doing that? Because that practice used to be frowned upon in the past, to set aside preferred stock for founders. What percent of your stock is preferred stock for founders, if you don't mind sharing?
35%, I would say. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I started the company, I had 100%, right? And then now I have about 23%. And I don't care, honestly. Like, if you're obsessed with your product, if you're get diluted, who cares? Build that thing that people want, and good things will happen. I'm actually curious. Alistair, do you have any thought on that? So by the way, Alistair is an investor. He was a venture capitalist. So I'm sure he has something from the other side.
I think you hit on it. I'm not as to preferred versus common, I'm not sure, but yeah, you know, a double digit or even a small or even a single digit percentage of something is better than 100% of nothing. And just like you and Gautam are saying, is like it's got to be a cooperative venture. This is not an app where you can you can take a $10,000 home equity loan and build your great Angry Birds version 4 or whatever and bootstrap the rest of the way. I can't improve on what you've been saying. Totally agree from that side.
We're in the business
Thank you.
of different lives, really. Even our investors are built different. Really, MedTech, biotech investors are built different. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a passion about impacting human patient outcomes, right? Which is why a lot of us do what we do.
Take all of my equity. I swear, take all of my equity. Don't take all of my compensation. Take all of my equity and give me FDA clearance. Nothing else matters. I mean, I could hit all the milestones that I want to hit. I could be as greedy as I want. But in the end, give me my clearance. Let's put this in the hands of doctors. I keep telling people, like my team is like, all right, well, this year we get to save a life. Like there is a good chance if we do everything right, this year we could save a life. And there's no valuation that could come close to that in my mind.
So actually that is a wonderful segue into our next question. Do investors want to know what FDA interactions have you had? What kind of questions do they ask regarding your regulatory process when they're making investment decisions?
Well, I can speak to that. Yeah, I think every interaction, if there is something that is new, novel, that question will be asked is, have you spoken to an agency? Are you in clinical trials? Has somebody used it? Has this been used in a patient? And I think all of those things maybe in some way is their way of kind of gauging their risk of this device, regulatory risk, anyways. And I think once you've had certain milestones, which we just recently had, I think the conversation changes. It just changes. It's completely different. It's now is like, okay, how many can you make, or when can we make a version of what you've cleared with the agency? So even with, I mean, using our customers as kind of investing into future programs, those milestones and anything that you can gain, get feedback from the FDA on your technology is very, very helpful.
Okay. So your conversation basically changes from a product development conversation to a sales conversation.
Yeah, it's no longer a pie in the sky. It's a little bit more real. It's more real.
Yeah. Which is a two-edged sword, right? Because now you have to chase revenues and yeah. I think it's especially investors that are out of sector, like they would make an exception, invest in us. So they don't have much experience in the FDA work. These are the paranoid ones. Um, and they would hear something in the news like 15 FDA staffers got laid off, but these were working on cow devices. Like that does not impact me, right? But they still want to know like how's that gonna impact you? Regulations are scary to some people.
Regulations are what will make or break a startup. So I suppose that concern is valid.
Yeah, but also it's against your competition, right? It's a baseline, right? Like you're building something that's gonna save lives. The FDA is not gonna stand in your way. I love the
Exactly.
FDA. They put my competition out of business recently.
Why
Well, I
did they
think
put your competition out of business?
Their data were not good enough. They used very similar approach as us, except that their device was not working properly.
Right. So I guess that is where the concern comes in as an investor.
Well, as an investor, um, as an investor, you need to look at data. You need to bring someone smart who understands the science. I mean, we're talking about a device that detects something that has to do with bacteria's breathing, right? Like you have to understand what we're building. You have to look at the data and you have to trust the data. So, Gautam kind of like talked about it earlier about publications, right? Uh, we go around to hospitals asking, hey, are you interested in publishing a paper? And we would give them money and devices. It's like, hey, go test this, see if it works, and publish it in your name. Um, that's how you know something works.
So publishing is a marketing tool for you then.
I don't publish out of Aztec because I think that is unnecessary, but our partner hospitals publish, and it is, do not take my word that this will work. Take the word of this key opinion leader out of this large organization.
it's always better for your customers to talk about your product than you to talk. I mean, that's the best marketing tool
Absolutely.
Third party validation.
is independent validation of your product. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So we have time for one more question, and so how challenging is it to raise funds in the current environment?
Who
The
knows?
elephant in the room.
There's pessimism. Everyone's talking how bad the market is. The reality is people are still raising. Yeah, VC money, I mean, for medtech and for diagnostics has not been the sexiest really in the last I don't know, 10 years or so. But keep building something. If people want it, you'll find the money. You will.
I
Yeah.
mean, there might be some near-term uncertainty with some of these non-dilutive, at least federal level sources of funding. But I think if you're creative, maybe there's alternatives, maybe at the state level. But also, I think, as Mustafa says, is I think if you're solving a need and there's a big gap and there's a large unmet need, I think the resources will follow. You just have to make sure you give yourself enough of a runway to exist, but also to kind of reach out to people who want to know about your story.
Make sure that you have a differentiated product that is solving a real need.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you need to tell a story. You need to say the right things, and you need to put yourself out there. You need to fail and succeed. And it's really is not, there's not one factor that will make or break this. It's a whole combination of things. People want to say yes at the beginning, and then they want to say no towards the end. So the idea is to get the yes in the end. And once you're in it and you have the runway, like Gautam said, this is fun. This is really fun.
Yeah. So if we were to close this with one word about your startup journey, what would that be?
I'll leave that to Gautam first. I need to think.
Purposeful.
Purposeful. I like that.
I built this for my grandfather. He does not remember me now. But he told me recently that there's an American company working on something that is going to fix his situation. Right? So I think purposeful really hit the spot as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and this very insightful discussion. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We will send out the recording